Okay, so we're back. We have unclamped our part here. Next, we need to lay out our pieces on the material. But first, here's our polyurethane glue that we talked about that would expand, and so it came out of the sides, expanded. You'll need to come in with a rasp and clean that up, remove that, and then start laying out your shape on there. More than likely you have a template, paper template. It's best to use a spray mount that will allow you to place that on there. In the previous video I mentioned spraying both sides and sticking pieces together with spray mount like pink foam and cardboard. You definitely want to do that for those. Any papers, obviously you just spray the one side of the paper and then you stick it down, so didn't want that to be misleading. So yeah, you would lay out your part, make sure you know where the ends of your pieces are, take a square, transfer those lines up, transfer them over for your other view that you're going to have laying there as well, so that you know that your two parts are sharing the same space in both views. Remember that you're only going to cut the two most descriptive views. So in this case, we're going to cut a top and a front profile. We're not worried about trying to do the tall because at some points those get very unsafe. And the third cut, you're not really defining any true thing except for probably the belly area of this part. Nothing else would come from a top view cut. So remember, it's just those two most descriptive views. Mine's already laid out. I've got a hot glue gun warming up. I'm going to step back and make our cuts. We have about 1/4 inch to either side of the foam, so our part's kind of floating in there. I should be able to come to the bandsaw and make one nice clean cut all the way around, and then a second cut all the way back the other way. So I'm going to retain those pieces, and you'll see that here in the next shot. So I'm going to go to the bandsaw, make that cut, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have cut our shape out, and we have for the most part, the base pieces to put underneath this. We're not going to easily be able to take this, put our drawing on top of this odd shape, safely run that through the bandsaw. So the technique is to put your pieces back together. We have some of those lines that we created there. It's not bad to come in and create, prior to cutting, some tick marks on your piece so you know which pieces line back up to what location. So now we come in with the hot glue gun. My drawing is here kind of centralized, so I can put hot glue all on this top edge, this top plane, and be fine and not have glue touching my part. If my part did come very close to an edge here, I'd probably want to steer clear of putting any hot glue in that area and err toward the sides of that. So I kind of call it welding it back together. So we open up our gap and put a couple of little dots there at the top. And then we close it up and we do the other. And we line everything back up the way it was. Wait for that to set up. Once it has set up, which this one hasn't, you'll flip it over on the bench and do the same thing. So I'll just kind of quickly, since it hasn't set up, just do some welds while I hold it. And then once that has set up, we will go to the bandsaw once again. Our part will sit flat on the table and we're able to cut our second descriptive view. And so that's what we end up with at the very end, is our piece there. Our next challenge would be then to start sculpting. If this was a fairly symmetrical kind of rounded shape, it doesn't hurt to come in and start understanding where your center line is. Center line. Or if you have any descriptive pieces that you need to kind of preserve. Understand kind of where things fall. Start coming in with your rasp. typically the round side of a rasp. And start shaping. And since I have, in this case, that center line, I'm going to stay away from making contact with it. Details in foam, I would say 1/4 inch would be kind of the smallest kind of sizes you want to get. At some point, especially if you're being aggressive with the shaping, you may start to break some of those small details. So we've kind of essentially gotten this roughed out. You could go to the next, on the 4-in-1 rasp, the next level of refinement. Start shaping that. As I'm doing this, I'm rotating, I'm seeing the facets that I'm creating, making sure that I am kind of rolling it as I shape, so that I'm eliminating any hard lines that I'm placing in there. So I would do that for all sides. And probably from this level, maybe continue with a little bit more of that, blending everything in. And then transitioning to probably a 120 grit sandpaper. And then that point, we're kind of starting to cup and kind of ride those surfaces and removing any of those line facets that we have with the sandpaper. From 120, then going to 220, and then getting to 320 perhaps. I would stop there, probably at 320, put my first coat of primer on, get a review of how that kind of looks, and then start doing any spackling that I need to with the wall spackle, and then lightly sanding out 220, 320, and then finishing. So we'll do that in the next video.